So my name is Michael West. I'm a graduate student at MIT, working with Professor Neville Hogan. And today I'll be talking about the emergence of kinematic hand synergies during wire harness installation. So today in the assembly line, a lot of the tasks can be done automatically by robots, as shown here on the left. But when it comes to wire harness installation, due to the non-rigid nature of the wire harnesses, it's often done manually by humans, which is shown here on the right. And this can create a bottleneck in the system. And the team that we're working for is trying to move towards robot-assisted wire harness installation. But before adding a robot to the system, it's very important that you understand what the human is doing in this human-robot collaboration. So we started this project with the goal of trying to understand what exactly humans are doing. Specifically, we want to monitor the human operator's hands during wire harness installation. And one way to do that is by measuring the joints of the human hand. However, the human hand is a very high dimensional system, generally having more than 20 degrees of freedom. And as some of our presenters touched on earlier today, one way to reduce that challenge of a high degree of freedom system is looking at synergies. And it has been shown that two synergies can be accounted for upwards of 75% of the variance in hand posture, which is shown here on the right, which greatly reduces the high degree of freedom system of the human hand. However, there are two open questions from the literature in synergies. One, do synergies emerge in the human hand during object manipulation used for wire harness installation? And if they do emerge, are they the same synergies that emerge during reach and grasp of the object? So with those questions in mind, we conducted an experiment that was composed of two parts. First, in the first part, subjects reached and grasped an object that is commonly found in wire harness installation. They were specifically told to grasp the object as if they were going to use it. The objects they use are listed on the left. And in the second part, subjects actually use those objects to install a wire harness on a mock electrical cabinet shown here on the right. And specifically, the steps that subjects were told to go through was first to zip tie the branch ends of the wire harness, to second, use scissors to cut the zip ties, and then third, to install the wire harness with a set of screwdrivers and screws, and then fourth, to route the wire harness, and then lastly, to plug it into a socket. So upon extracting those synergies, we have two results. First, synergies did emerge. And you can see here in the columns are the first three synergies. The first synergy generally accounted for about 89% of variance, where the second accounted for about 4.5% of the variance. And the first synergy was dominated by, if you can see my hand, open closure, sort of a power grasp movement, while the second synergy is dominated by inward thumb rotation, if you can see my mouse showing that point. And the second question was if these synergies since these synergies do emerge, are they the same? What we did here is we computed the correlation coefficient between the synergies of the two tasks. And if the synergies are the same, these diagonal components of these correlation coefficients should be very high, which here should be shown very darkly. And what we found upon running Fisher hypothesis testing was that only the five circled synergies here were considered statistically equal. And this is done in the case for 5 of the 7 subjects of the first synergy, but not for any of the higher order synergies. So to conclude, we do show that synergies do exist during object manipulation and wire harness installation. And upon comparing those synergies, only the first synergy is the same, while higher order synergies differ. And this work is important in the fact that it emphasizes the point that we should explore manipulation synergies in addition to just reach and grasp synergies. And understanding this difference can be helpful in trying to implement a system that can manipulate these objects, such as wire harness installation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.